All righty, good afternoon. J.R. Lewis with you here on KLAM and KCDV. We're going to do another briefing here today in response to our outbreak situation, and it's just me today. Hopefully it won't get too dry. There's going to be a lot of reading, but it's to be sure we get some of the latest announcements that have been passed on to us from city and medical officials, and then also an update on Salmon Jam. Today is July 15th. It's Thursday. This is airing on the radio in the 1, 5, and 8 p.m. hours, and then as soon as it can be uploaded to the YouTube channel, youtube.com/Cordova TV. Be there for you as well. So we had a visit, by the way, with Dr. Sanders, in case you missed that one, and that one is on the YouTube channel. She commented on this outbreak that we're having. I mean, that's what it legitimately is, obviously. You can find that at youtube.com/Cordova TV. There's a chance she and I may talk again tomorrow, depending on how things evolve, but that's up in the air at this point. In the meantime, today we want to cover a couple of things, like I said. Predominantly a testing clinic that's coming up tomorrow on the 16th. And then, like I said, a statement from the Salmon Jam folks on how they're dealing with this. The community COVID testing event is tomorrow, Friday, July 16th, in the Cordova Community Medical Center ambulance bay from 10 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. And again, we'll get into the background on what led up to this next. They say if you are fully vaccinated, testing is not necessary unless you are experiencing symptoms. Now, what the city, the Cordova Prepared folks are saying about this and the situation overall. First off, we have 43 active COVID cases in the community. I think 40 of them are locals, 3 are resident, 43 are resident, 3 are non-resident. And the city says that makes for a lot of potential cases and additional close contacts. As our number rises each day, so does the need for additional community testing, which is why they're having the event tomorrow. A close contact is someone who was less than 6 feet away from an individual who was positive for COVID for a period of 15 minutes. So again, a close contact is anyone who was within 6 feet of somebody who has COVID, and they were within 6 feet of that person for 15 minutes or more. Contact tracing takes time, and tracers are doing their best to keep up with community needs. If you believe that you may be a close contact but have not yet been called by contact tracers, please take it upon yourself to take appropriate measures. For vaccinated people, if you're not presenting any symptoms after an exposure to a COVID-positive person, you don't need to quarantine or test. You should monitor for symptoms for a 14-day period, and if you develop symptoms, immediately social distance and get a COVID test. You should also be mindful of your interactions during the 14-day monitoring period and consider taking extra precautions such as masking in public and keeping distance from those who may be more vulnerable. So again, those are the recommended actions to be taken by vaccinated people. Now, for unvaccinated close contacts, you will need to take a COVID test and then will be asked to quarantine for a period of 10 days. Quarantine means staying home, not going to work, not going into public spaces such as businesses and community buildings, and distancing from those inside the home who are not considered close contacts. If you test and are diagnosed as positive, you will also need to quarantine and will be asked to provide a list of your close contacts. If you are unvaccinated and feel that you may be a close contact or are experiencing COVID symptoms, please attend the community testing. And then they say, lastly, if you are vaccinated and are experiencing any COVID symptoms, you also should attend the community testing. So again, with unvaccinated folks, it's if you're experiencing symptoms or think you may have been a close contact. For the vaccinated folks, it's only if you're experiencing COVID symptoms. Those two subsets of the population are urged to attend the community testing. And so again, that community testing event is tomorrow, Friday, July 16th, at the Cordova Community Center, or Cordova Community Medical Center ambulance bay from 10 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. With that one more reminder, if you are fully vaccinated, and remember that means 2 weeks beyond your final dose. If you got the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, that's a single shot. So 2 weeks after that shot, you're considered fully vaccinated. If you had Pfizer or Moderna, then you take the one shot, you wait a month, you get the second one, and then 2 weeks after that, that's when your full vaccination is considered to be in effect. So if you are fully vaccinated, you don't need to worry about getting tested at this event tomorrow unless you have symptoms. For unvaccinated people, it should be if you have symptoms and or you think that there's a chance you could have been a close contact with somebody who is COVID positive. Now, if you want to read this instead of just hearing it from me, the Cordova Prepared Facebook page has this information. I would imagine it's at covid19.cityofcordova.net somewhere as well. I know, though, that it's on their Facebook page. And as Dr. Sanders said, we have done very well. Now, this is about twice as many cases, I think, as we've ever had, but we have done very well in the past knocking this down by implementing these practices, which, again, are, for a while, the recommendation. There are no mandates, not yet anyway, but the recommendation is to kind of think of doing things in public the same way, essentially, that we did when we were in the thick of it a year ago. Just stay away from people that aren't in your bubble, maybe even those that are not in your household if you want to be a little extra cautious. And then go back to masking everywhere in public until we get this back down to where we're, at 0 or single digits. Because this new version, this variant, it jumps around a lot more easily, apparently. And the vaccination opportunities, of course, are still open as well. You might have heard that from Robbie in the calendar. The city has a community vaccination schedule underway. CCMC is giving the Johnson & Johnson vaccine throughout this week, and you can call 8,000 to schedule a time. Cordova Community Medical Center and Elanca are giving out the Pfizer vaccine, if you prefer that one, and you can call 3045 to sign up. One of the clinics will return your call and schedule an appointment. If you prefer the Moderna vaccine, you can call 3045 and you'll be scheduled for a vaccine later. Now, as far as Salmon Jam, which is a big event scheduled in the midst of all of this, they obviously are very aware of what's going on. And actually, I talked to some of the officials, and they said they have been planning for their events to be as COVID responsive as possible from the outset. So thus far, and this can always change, but at the time of this broadcast, there isn't an awful lot that they've had to do differently. Their statement says, due to the recent uptick in COVID cases, we encourage all people to wear masks when in close proximity to others. All Salmon Jam activities have been planned or are being modified if needed to follow COVID prevention best practices. All activities are outside and will provide adequate space for physical distancing. All volunteers and event hosts will be masked, and they'll have hand sanitizer on hand for participants. One event that's being modified or updated, the Alaska Salmon Run Barbecue and Race Awards, will be held in the Upper Cordova Center parking lot instead of inside the Pioneer Igloo. So bring a camp chair and enjoy a meal to go outside. And shuttles to race starts will still be offered, but all racers are required to be masked up. And the windows of the shuttles will be kept open to increase ventilation, so you'll want to layer up if you're riding one of those. And then they say, too, please follow best practices to keep Cordova healthy, wash hands, physically distance, and stay in your bubble. Wear a mask, especially when social distancing isn't possible. And if you feel sick, please stay home and isolate. So that's the word from the Salmon Jam folks. We have that announcement running fairly regularly on the air as part of our Salmon Jam sort of coverage that we're doing. And then again, that other information from the city you can find on the Cordova Prepared Facebook page and possibly somewhere on their website. We are still at a level 3 watch, that kind of yellow alert level. If you want the specifics on what that means, that's available at covid19.cityofcordova.net. But again, it's not anything that we aren't used to. We did it before. We did it real well. These times that we've had bumps in our case counts, we've turned them around just by being smart and recognizing that these are temporary measures, which everyone, on the medical team is saying that they are. So we'll get this turned around and be able to turn the next page here, hopefully. Now, again, there's a possibility that we'll be having a visit with Dr. Sanders tomorrow in this time slot. We will, of course, let you know. Well, I mean, we'll put that on the air, obviously, when that happens, and then let you know when it goes up to the YouTube channel. Our conversation with her on the 12th is there. This one will go up there. And if we have one tomorrow, that'll be there as well. YouTube.com/Cordova TV. We continue to hold this time slot open for situations just like this when something happens and there's information to get out. So if you ever want to see if one of these is happening, just check in on the radio in the 1 p.m., 5 p.m., and 8 p.m. hours. I'm J.R. Lewis on KLAM and KCDV. Thank you for tuning in. We'll get back to regular programming.